Denmark is one of the happiest countries in the world. In fact, Denmark has always been among the top 3 happiest nations since the World Happiness Index started measuring happiness. The reasons why the Danes are so happy are well known. Denmark has a robust social welfare system, free healthcare and education, and little to no corruption. On top of that, there are high levels of trust in government and fellow citizens, combined with a healthy work-life balance and modest expectations to life overall. This makes the Danes content about their life, or as they would say, it's not too bad. But many Danes don't feel very happy at all. In fact, around 10% of the Danish population is on antidepressants, and 25% of young Danish women under 34 have a diagnosis or signs of anxiety or depression. So is Denmark really that happy paradise that many make it out to be? That is the question I will answer in this video. I'm Steven, a Danish local and social science researcher who spent years researching and experiencing life in Denmark firsthand. Today I manage the Danish stream channel here on YouTube and a website that provides foreigners with reliable information about living in Denmark. But now back to the story why many Danes don't actually feel as happy as the statistics might allude to. First, let's start with the symptoms. Then later on in the video I will tell you the root causes, and I can promise you it's not what you think and it will surprise you. We see a young generation that is very anxious and depressed, trying to live up to high expectations set by society and social media. These high expectations are not only felt by young people but also among parents who have to juggle 2 full-time careers, being parents and looking perfect at the same time. And I can tell you from a personal perspective that once your Danish friends start to have kids, poof, they are off the radar and out for about 10 years until the kids can be home alone. Before that, they are too busy making the machine room running at home. They start relying more on their family for support, and friendships are slowly sort of forgotten. If you happen to bump into your now parent Danish friends in the supermarket or at a wedding, they will, of course, deplore that you don't hang out more. They will maybe even bring out their calendars, and if you are lucky, they will have time for you in about 7 months or so. Actually, Danes want to escape this planning mania to be more spontaneous, but the reality is hard to escape for many. And that's why it's so hard to make new friends in Denmark, or even to keep old ones, as expectations are so high on the individual families. Let me know in the comments below if you have experienced a similar situation with this planning mania. Another symptom of unhappiness is that 10% of the Danish population is on antidepressants. They struggle to keep up with high expectations of a perfect life in a complex society. From the outside, and according to the Maslow's pyramid of needs, Denmark checks all the boxes. All basic needs are met in Denmark, and most Danes have the potential for self-actualization. So if Danes are so free and independent to actually do what they want with their lives, why are they so miserable? It seems we need to get one level deeper to answer that question. One particularly interesting statistic in my view is the number of people living alone. In Denmark, 38% of the population lives alone. Combine that with the fact that 12% of the population feels lonely. Studies show that loneliness cuts life expectancy by about 7 years. This makes loneliness almost as dangerous as smoking. Living alone and being single might be great if you hang out in the sun with your friends and colleagues after work, but sitting alone in your small Danish but nice apartment might not be all that hyggelig and cozy after all, especially not during winter time. In fact, it can be the root cause for depression and social anxiety. Which brings me to an underlying factor that we cannot escape: the weather and the sun, or lack of. The Danish culture is not an outgoing culture because the weather is not for sitting outside except during the summertime. And let's not forget the long, dark winters. Seasonal depression is a real problem in Denmark. For months, daylight is limited and that takes a toll on everyone. In December, you go to work while it's dark and come back home during the dark hours. Still super depressing. Actually, the weather in Denmark might be a major explanatory factor for the overall Danish reserved culture. And Danes are truly reserved and introverted, except when they're drinking. Danes use alcohol as a means to loosen up the conversation and let loose altogether. The heavy use of alcohol is probably a symptom in itself of an introverted culture, in my opinion, and that might be why Danes are among the heaviest drinkers in Europe. Danes both drink daily and binge drinks on weekends. About 15% of the Danish population are functional alcoholics, as we call it, or have more severe alcohol problems than that. It's not uncommon in many households, together with the spouse, to open a bottle of wine just for a little hygge ritual, just to calm the nerves in a hectic daily life. For young people or people going out a lot, binge drinking is a common thing. You don't just go out, buy 1 or 2 drinks and then go home. You get wasted. That's what it's all about in Denmark, sadly. But what's the underlying cause for all this unhappiness? I promised you a surprising answer to this, and here it is. The paradox is that it's the strong and efficient welfare state together with the weather that is causing all this, or at least that's my opinion. Since we have covered the weather already, let me explain why the welfare state is the problem. And if you want to know more about the weather, I also made a video about that here. Many fail to understand that the welfare state is an independence and freedom project. It sets the individual free by providing free healthcare, education, and social benefits. But as Danes are de facto made economically independent from their families and social support in general, it sort of destroys the social fabric. In Denmark, you don't call your uncle to ask for social support when you feel sort of lonely. That would just be weird because you are not that close with him anyways. The same might even go for parents with their children. In other cultures, daily contact with family members is normal, even the extended family. You could call your cousin, cousin could call you, would call your mother, hear how it's going, these kind of things. The expectation in other countries is that children support their elders because nobody else is. In Denmark, people pay tax so that the state can take care of the elderly, the children, and the sick. That's smart because that frees up people's time for working and keeping the wheels running. At the same time, you could say it's also good because your elderly and your young ones are taken care of by professionals for a long duration of time. They also get socialized in kindergarten and so on and so forth. Many benefits, surely. But the state's generous offer and institutionalization of the individual also limit individual freedom as a consequence. Let me give you some examples. Later in life, when you have children, your life will be very impacted by the daycare and school schedules that you have to work with. One example is that you have to bring the child to and from kindergarten during certain hours. Well, I know it sounds like a small thing, but I have literally seen young parents running through an office to make it to the kindergarten on time for pickup. I'm not saying there's a better alternative to this. I'm just saying, and my point is that young families are institutionalized into a rhythm that might not allow them to have very much free time or control in their everyday life. Also, life in Denmark is very expensive, which requires both parents to work unless one of them earns a lot of money, especially in the big cities. Working families are therefore under a lot of pressure. Finally, it's on you to make friends in Denmark, because no one really needs each other for material security in the rich Danish society. The social fabric has been damaged, or at least broken. People are busy living their dream life. Pensioners don't have time to look for their grandkids because they are out golfing somewhere in Spain. Old friends cannot meet up because their kids are going to badminton training the following day. Plans for self-actualization activities, travels and vacations are made up to 1 year into the future, limiting spontaneous meetups. The Danish way of life is very controlled, planned, and predictable. And this makes it really hard to make friends and build social fabric in Denmark. But if you want some tips on how to make friends in Denmark, I have made this other video up here that you can watch and learn from. Finally, because it's so hard to making friends and creating the social fabric, that's also why many people are miserable, and that's why we see the symptoms that I mentioned earlier in this video. I hope this video gave you an insight in why Denmark is not all happy and dandy for all. And if you like videos and explanations like this about Danish society, don't forget to hit the bell notification button down there, and also go check out the website thedanishstream.com. I also have a couple of other videos that you might find interesting right here and right here. Thank you very much. Until I see you next time, take care.